In 1996, my family and I lived in a duplex community nestled in a cul-de-sac near Linwood, Washington. At that time, the area was heavily forested and a decent place to live. I'm not sure if there used to be any native burial grounds in the area or anything, but I'm completely at a loss to explain what happened one night. It was an ordinary night, and my mom was making dinner, and I was in the living room playing my Sega Genesis. In the living room where I was playing my game, Sonic the Hedgehog, on the couch sat my sister and stepdad, who were just watching my game as I played it. The living room was connected to the kitchen, divided by a bar counter. At this time, my stepsister was upstairs taking a shower, so she did not witness what was to occur. As I was playing my game, it suddenly froze, which really wasn't so odd. The cartridge probably just needed a blowing. As this happened, I kind of got annoyed and looked back to the couch where my stepdad and my sister sat. I told them it froze, just being a complainer. And when I looked back to the TV screen, to our left on the wall appeared this black shadow. Not exactly a shadow, but a black 2D thing on the wall. It moved across the wall and looked like a large lump, or half circle, that was only about 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide or so. The truly terrifying part of this was, as it moved across the wall, this thing let out what I can only describe as a loud roar. So loud, in fact, that it sounded like I was in a movie theater. The roar it made sounded similar to the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, only scarier. I jumped up onto the couch with my sister and stepdad, and my mom ran over to us too, completely terrified. My mom and stepdad got up and slowly checked around the room for answers. My mom had a fire poker in her hand while she checked the broom closet, but came up with nothing. My stepsister, who was showering upstairs at the time, had finished and come downstairs, and to our surprise, when asked, she did not hear the loud roar. We couldn't believe it. Even the neighbors down the road had to have heard it. This event has always challenged my sanity. When it does, I talk to my family about it just to hear their side of the experience, which always matches mine. I just can't explain it, and neither can they. I think maybe because the game froze and the demon roar happened, it was just some kind of electrical issue, but I can't think of how that would affect the acoustic side of things, or the shadow-esque thing that appeared. It's just something that I forgot about until I think about it, and then I forget about it again, just to bury it in my mind. I'll never be able to explain it, I guess. Is it possible that maybe there was some kind of subtle electromagnetic effect on their ear hairs, similar to V2K? There are plenty of military technologies that could perform such an event, but I won't go too far into that right now. What is really intriguing about this story is the fact that they describe the shadow as not a shadow, just a 2D thing on the wall. Could it be possible that some kind of entity was really behind this event, and it did mean harm to them, or to put fear in them at least? I don't know much about Native American burial grounds or their locations, but could that have any merit here? The witness continues with another story. About 2 years or so after the demonic roar event, my family moved into a new house. This house wasn't a duplex, so we had neighbors and all that, and we had a decent-sized yard. It was apparently built onto an existing log cabin, kind of a strange old build, but it was pretty cool. The log cabin was my parents' bedroom, and the rest of the house was built in the 60s or so, it seemed. My room even had long red-orange carpet that totally dated it. I'll say right now that there were several paranormal occurrences in this new house for the next few years that we lived there. But I'll only go into one instance that really changed the game for me, and which also slightly relates to the event I previously described. Like I said, there were many creepy occurrences at this house, so during the time of this next event, I was already terrified of ghosts and demons in that house. Because I lived in fear of the house, I slept with my blankets cocooned around my feet and head, with only a small passageway for air to breathe. This would cause me to get sweaty and overheat at night, so I would, before going to bed, get about 3 or 4 ice cubes wrapped in a paper towel to keep my body cool. I know it sounds weird, but that's just what I did. I'll start with the events of the night in question, with me getting into bed, because that's when things immediately started to get weird. I had gotten into bed and was all ready to go to sleep when I realized that I had forgotten to get my usual ice cubes and a towel. I called for my stepsister, who was in the room next to mine. She came in and I asked her to get my ice, which she was pretty used to. She complied and saved me the scary trip of leaving my cocoon and brought me the ice. As soon as she left, I got a very creepy feeling, which I was always careful to just go to sleep as soon as possible when I would feel that. It's hard to explain, but I felt like an entity was in the room with me. A bad one. Sleep was the fastest way out of this situation for me, so I tried to do just that. All I can remember is just slipping into sleep pretty fast, with my ice cubes to cool me down. I feel like I wasn't asleep for long when I woke up. Something in the room woke me up, and I was immediately terrified. The worst part was that my arm had worked its way out to the cool air, no longer safely tucked in the blanket burrito, and my airway had increased in size, exposing my head to the evil that I could feel outside. Through the airway, I could see out into my room, which was lit by my aquamarine lava lamp. I noticed something was flashing on the wall, then realized that the light source that was making the flashing was coming from my television, which was out of my view. I still had my arm outside of the safety burrito, and I was much too scared to pull it back in, so I tried to keep still. It took me a minute or two, but I slowly tilted my head back to get a good look at what was going on with my television. I finally had it in sight, and to my amazement, my Sega was on, and somebody was playing Sonic the Hedgehog. At first, I thought maybe the game was showing its demo. You know, when you don't push any buttons on the home screen for a while, and then the game gives you a little gameplay video. But I realized this was not the case. I could see that my controller was on the ground, and the gameplay that I was seeing was terrible. Sonic was just walking forward. The character would jump here and there, and would walk into short walls that were meant to be jumped over. Whoever was playing my game was not doing a good job at all. They eventually got the character up and over the obstacle they were walking into, then proceeded to do the little spin and speed dash that Sonic does, only to hit another wall and struggle to get over it. I knew something was really messed up at this point, and I could still feel that evil presence in my room. This is where the story makes a turn for the worse. I forgot to mention that my bed was a bunk bed, and I slept on the top bunk. I used the bottom bunk as like a fort thing instead. As I am now aware that my controller is on the ground and something is playing my game, I decide to slowly pull my arm back into my overheated cocoon. As soon as I make the most subtle motion of reeling my arm back, I feel something grab my forearm. This hand thing felt weird, and I could tell it was very wide with wide, flat fingers, and it had something sharp digging into part of my arm. As soon as it grabbed me, it yanked my arm with a ton of force and pulled my arm through the rail that keeps kids from falling off the top bunk. It pulled my arm through this rail and my whole body followed, now pressed into the fall guard. I felt like my arm was going to pull out of its socket, and my chest felt like it was going to break against the metal bars. This all happened so fast, I didn't have time to scream. I heard the metal pop, and I fell down off of the bunk bed with my arm still pulled through the guardrail and landed on it with the rail. I thought I had broken my arm, and then suddenly I hear a crash, and my stepsister bursts into the room, slamming my door wide open, and found me pinned down by my own body weight. She helped me up and saw my situation, then asked me what the heck happened. I told her about my game, which was still on, but was frozen now, and about the weird hand that pulled me down. We looked at the bed guard, and saw that both the small tabs that allow it to bolt to the bed were twisted and ripped. They were ripped around the bolts. It was really cheesy pot metal, and I'm glad that it was. because I know my arm would have definitely ripped off if it had been a sturdy metal bed. The force this thing applied to it was just crazy. Nowadays, I don't even think about those events much. I just prefer to ignore that whole part of my life. When something creepy does happen, or if people tell me about things like that, I just ignore it and don't indulge in whatever is being said or happening. I feel like because I was scared, I was somehow attracting these demons or evil entities into my life or something. Like they fed off of my fear. Since leaving that house years ago, I have yet to experience anything like that again. On a side note, I'm not really sure why in both of these instances Sonic the Hedgehog was involved. I just kind of thought it was a weird connection between the two events, so I would include it. If you or someone you know has a story that cannot be explained, and you would like to get the word out and contribute to the great puzzle, feel free to leave a comment on any of my videos or message the channel directly at strange.unknowns@gmail.com. Thank you, and please subscribe.